Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
it's going good.
I guess I'll just give a quick recap and then we're going to hand it over to Arturis today to lead the office hours. We gave an intro to Arturis previously, so hopefully y'all have had a chance to say hi. He's also been emailing people. Arturis is a great person to know for all things ontology, structuring knowledge, and he's been diving in to all your responses and has some really great ideas and can really help everybody to align on good ontologies, good types and properties and stuff. So um, I'll just give a quick recap of where we're at. We've gotten, let's see, 25 responses to the week 2 form and 13 responses to the week 3 form. I think people are still going on publishing stuff on testnet. Would love to maybe start by, usually in these we do demos. People can show the stuff that they're working on. That'll be really great to see. And if also people just want to share a bit about their experience, if with the current libraries, publishing on the testnet is straightforward enough, or what kind of questions people might have as they're going through. Why don't we open up the floor? Actually, one thing before we do that, I would also love to introduce folks to Armando, who's on the call. Hey, Armando. Armando is one of our geo explorers who's really been crushing it, organizing a lot of the content that you see on our previous Explorer and on the new one related to like crypto news. If you want to just say hello to the group.
Hi everybody. Hi Yaniv. Paul is back. So I am able to assist and I'm willing to know and understand better what is the back end of what we are using every day. We know the interface, so I'm very interested to know more about code and stuff.
Yeah, awesome. And Armando is a wide range of interests. Has been organizing a lot of interesting content across Geo right now, focusing on the crypto stuff. So especially folks like Ilya, I know you've been focusing on crypto jobs. Might be a little bit of overlap there as we get things organized on the crypto space. Um, but cool, why don't we go ahead and kick off demos and you can share what you're working on. Let us know how things have been going with the GRC-20 libraries and love to hear from the group. Who wants to go first?
I can. What kind of demos are you looking for?
You could just show the knowledge and you could kind of walk through like ex the example entity pages. Maybe you could talk through what types of properties you used, maybe how you published it, and anything you learned about the process?
Sure. So I am publishing legal data, and really that's like four or five main entities. It looks like the most I started from the most edge cases, so the things that are least connected. And so, you have courts that don't really need anything else to exist. It would be nice to have um state information in here and stuff like that to link these to like the states they exist in without having to create those states all in and of themselves. And that's one other issue I have with like putting people's roles in. If it's, they're a governor for the state of Indiana or something, right? So not having that state and that base level geographic information in there already is. I mean, I could publish it, but it's just like I don't necessarily know that that's the right way to do it.
Hmm.
As far as ownership goes. But anyway, started, what information did I have to put in here? And then built out from the connectedness from there. But, in my data set, there's a bunch of different predefined things like for example, the jurisdiction, right? You can have a bunch of different jurisdictions. And so I went through and actually um, defined all of these. And so what I first did was I created a just a table that has all of the types that I need to add. and then a description of all those types. And then I went through and algorithmically posted them all. And then from there, I built another thing for each one of these different properties. There's a bunch of information I can have, right? And so, for example, in a court opinion might have, authors of that opinion, who it's joined by, things like that. And so I went out and detailed all of the different, you would see these in the properties under a type. And so I essentially then wrote a script that, so all you have to do is go in here and define what properties you want for each type, and then it'll go in through here and add them all. But then there's some that have like choices to them, right? For example, the judge has a role that is one of the choices. And I don't actually know why it's not on here. I think it should be. But if 1 second. If you look at, I made a mapping of all the different roles, and then put the key in the data set, the value, and then a description for each one. And then algorithmically went through and created all those roles. And then so that allowed me to have this like huge list that I could map back to without having to just have like free text information and make sure everything was reasonably well defined. And so anyway, if we go to this judge, for example, I then have can see where they work, right? And then for each one of the position relations, I have all these things which were also defined in one of those tables. And then this shows how they got appointed to this position. And then you can see I also linked back the opinions to each one. No, I don't necessarily know if judges' opinions should be linked back to their page in this way, just because there could be hundreds of them. So it would make this properties thing get huge. But
you're covering a lot, and this is all really freaking cool. I also want to slow down just a little bit.
Oh yeah, I can
look at
ask
some of
any
this stuff.
whatever's.
This is all really freaking cool. If you just go back to the works at, that was super interesting how, so you had the relation, and in this case, so here's a judge who works at a court, and here's who they were appointed by, right? The confirmation details about the confirmation and the nomination, even the vote count. This is really freaking rad.
Yeah, and some of these things we could hide underneath, like maybe the votes could get hidden in this relation to vote type if we wanted, but I didn't necessarily know whether it should be wrapped to that level or just leave it all in this kind of role relation.
Yeah, and these are the sorts of things where, once we create kind of the public governance for this space, and maybe we get some other people involved to participate in having those discussions. And one of the things that I realize with this stuff is even discussing these ontologies, you actually get very deep into the structure of whatever field you're in, and you want to have those conversations with other people that are thoughtful about their domains. And and that's part of that governance process, having those conversations. So but as a starting point, this is really cool. So this is about the judge getting appointed to a position.
Yep.
If we look at I did see on a judge, I think there was just a small issue on the gender. So you might want to take a look at that where it says gender.
Yeah, there was one where I had a null value in the link. I've since fixed that in my code, but I couldn't delete it because I guess I could have copied this. I could have written this down by itself down here, but I didn't want to go through that effort. But if you click on this relationship, it just brings me to like a dead page. So I couldn't get the identity of the relationship to delete it.
Got it. It is in the URL bar.
Oh yeah, it is right there. So yeah, I could just do it that way.
But okay, we'll need to see why that's happening.
But
Maybe if you
that's why I didn't. That's why I didn't do it.
got it, cool. Okay, so interesting ontology question on the opinions per judge. What I would say is, yeah, there's different ways that you could do it, but I think it's quite fine to have those types of relations, even if there's many, and somewhat, I do think of it in terms of like the graph itself and like what are the main nodes and what are their connections. And I mean, this is kind of like the main work that these judges do, right? I guess they put out these
Yeah.
opinions. And so having like the relation between the judge, right? And like here's all of the opinions that I've created. Like that is in fact, yes, there might be many of them, but that does
Yeah.
seem to be the correct kind of like
Well,
relationship and
I
structure
actually
in this
I
graph,
think the
right?
best way to do it would be to not have them linked as properties down here, just because it can make this thing huge, and instead have a data table at the top that lists them in a more scannable way.
Yeah, so well, you could do both. So the point is you don't want to necessarily use the properties at the bottom for navigation for everything because you're right, a data table will be better, but you want to somewhat separate how are you structuring the graph from essentially like how are you presenting the content.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom is just a representation of the knowledge in the graph. And so, we'll have better ways to kind of hide things and whatever, but like don't let the fact that there's a lot of stuff down there kind of deter you. It's totally fine if there's a lot of stuff down there. But then I think your
Yeah.
instinct about the presentation is right, that that's not how people are going to want to navigate it. So for the presentation, what you can do is you could create a data table in the content area. And what that data table will be, I showed on Monday, create a table, you can set it to either show like entities or relations. So if you set it to show relations, you can basically put a table in the content area that shows all of the opinions by that judge.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be the best way for people to browse it.
Yeah, I think that would be, but also just to clarify, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be connected at all, but rather it should be a to the opinion, or it should be a from the opinion to the judge. The way I have it structured right now, I have it both from the judge to the opinion and from the opinion to the judge. So I made like a two-way relation with two different relations. Um, and that's where I just didn't know if that was the correct way to do it.
It's an interesting question, and maybe something we need to explore a little bit more to get a feel for what the best practice is. What I would say about the bidirectionality, I mean, the thing is, like, you can see already with the reference by at the bottom, those are the backlinks. So in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of always have the backlinks.
Yeah,
Uh,
and they exist here too.
Right, exactly. So that could be a reason to say like you don't always need bidirectional relationships because you can always kind
Yeah.
of query via the backlinks. That's a fair point. And so it's an interesting question. When do you want the bidirectional relationships versus when is one direction enough? And I think part of maybe the answer might come down to governance. And so, for example, let's say a company and a person and the works out relationship, an employee. A person can claim that they work at a company, but that doesn't mean that they actually work at the company. So in a sense,
Sure.
having that be two separate relationships, a person's like, hey, I work at this company, and then having the company itself create the relation in the reverse direction that says, yes, that's one of our team members, right? He's an employee. This is his role. That's actually really important from almost a governance and trust standpoint. And so maybe that's one of the delineations for when it makes sense to have it be a bidirectional. But for sure, from a querying standpoint, you should be able to query it the same, whether you're just kind of using the backlinks.
Yeah. And you could even sort this reference by type or something like that to see the different dockets and opinions they're related to. And the other thing that you bring up is, that comes back to a governance question is should a space or an entity have approval rights of connections to them, of any interaction with their node, or just edits to their nodes and connections away from them?
Yeah, and it's an interesting question. I mean, I think basically everyone's free to publish whatever knowledge they want to their own space. So I don't think that a space, right, should have the ability to say you can't talk about us, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
what you might want to do though is,
Oh,
and
that's
it's
true.
a question, right, is when it comes to like the reference by, the only reason that would really affect you, you would say, like anyone can link to you, but maybe you don't want it to show up in your own space, right? Because right now, basically, if you show all the backlinks, maybe there should be a way for a space to kind of like hide backlinks that they don't like,
Yeah.
right, within their
And
own space.
that even brings up a different thing that I was messing with was, there's a bunch of like source information I have from like where this case data was pulled from, etc. But that might be better to have as like a hidden metadata thing, right? Where it's like you could expand it and see this metadata with like IDs and relationships to sources, stuff like that. But as far as the UI goes, like that could get really annoying.
Cool.
But from a
Okay, hey, I
developer
think
standpoint, it's nice.
this has been really great. So, great work, and thanks for the demo. And super excited to keep diving deep on this. This is such an awesome use case, and it's really cool to see how far you're getting with this.
Cool.
Awesome. Should we have someone else go?
Yeah, I can do it. And also, I see this problem with relation. I think here is not so difficult problem because we can decide it. You can open DevTools and open GraphQL, find it in this, and no problem to delete this relation. It's about problem with empty relation. Where we see with at work. And now I can preview several my code, not my code, and what I do. And now I rework my data because I understand everything with problems that I have with my data now. Because when I work with Geo browser, I understand what I need for better experience. That's why I add for each thing something like property, and after that we have type, and also we have what this mean and where it I need to find, because without it I will create duplicates and something else. Also, I understand something else with problems with content, because we cannot add content only each lines. That's why I recreated and create only each line for each type, each content. And also, I recreate some avatar and other properties. It will be do a bit later. Here is my data, and it will be reworked because I understand how Geo browser need to get information from me. Yes. After that, I do this page of senior full stack engineer. Yes, this is each how we see in my data each. Oh, sorry, I don't understand what happened, but moment. Yes, for each line of text I edit, and it became nice and beautiful. Also, now my type is not full because this job don't have some information about salary and about other things. Also, I understand how to create a project. Each project will be same, something like cover and avatar. Cover I will be take from Twitter, and avatar same situation. I will be take it from Twitter. Also, types and other things. I think no problems to add it. Yes.
Amazing. One question I have on this part is, so you've been successful with the fuzzy search API. Do you have a process in place where you can search for projects on mainnet and get a sense
Yes.
of which ones already exist?
Yes. it will be my algorithm will be check if I have Zikr entity Zikr with type company or project, something else. I don't touch it. I don't create it or and do anything. I will use this entity. If I have I don't have this project with these types, I will add new. I think it's normal because company or project or to these types give us information about this is project. I
That's
think
right.
it's
And I'm curious what you think about the ideal workflow there, because, you know, I guess with the fuzzy search API, you'll get quite a few responses potentially. You might get 0 or you might get a few. So do you have like a process you're thinking about where, you know, it'll produce some kind of spreadsheet or something for you and you would kind of manually check to see whether it's a match or not?
I need to think about it seriously. I don't think about it now, but I think about it on this week because now it's only this situation that I tell. I think after that I will think about it. Also, now I create not bulk upload data only for each job opening. That's why, because I need some data and check that any other person add new information about maybe new project and maybe other things.
Okay.
And I believe that maybe it will be everything great, seriously, because I work on it a lot.
Awesome. Well, hey, this is looking really awesome. Great work. It's super cool to see.
Thank you so much, seriously, because I find Geo browser seriously interesting because it's for me it's new in graph work. It's something like new with relations and with triplets, and now my algorithm a bit not so abstract as I want because it will be later when I will have data and I will have my IDs in my databases, and after that I get all triplets and all relations and reward at it, but it's not now because I don't have. It's not so fast how I work with now. But later I think I rework it because it's really interesting experience for me. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Amazing. So great to
Amazing,
hear.
seriously.
Yeah, it's exciting. Cool. And we're all on the bleeding edge here, which is fun. Cool. Who wants to go next?
Hi, I can go on if it's okay.
Amazing, please. And just so you guys know, I'm gonna have to hop off in a few minutes, but Arturis will keep leading the call.
Okay, I have like just a regular example of a paper. I have the name, the paper type, the abstract, some authors. I had to add like a lot of persons, publish date, a project associated, which in this case is not a journal. I created arXiv like a project because it's not like an actual journal. And well, the topics and web URL. So a couple questions I have here is that with the topics, I created, I mean, some of these are already academic fields, but I had to create some of these like quantitative finance that I don't know if you want to create these like so specific academic fields. I think those are okay in topics, but I know we want to add related spaces, so I don't know if we want to create a space for these kind of topics.
This is a really great set of questions, which I can tell you our latest thinking, and I think it's an ongoing thing for us to get a feel for. But I guess the general thing is, you know, anything can be a topic in some ways. So it's, you know, it's like, does everything need the topic type? Anything, if it becomes big enough, can become a space. So when do you want to think about something as being a space?
Right. So we can have this as an academic field, but not to be in a space, for example.
Yeah. So what I would say is in general, something like this, right? Like let's say quantitative finance. It is a general idea. It's a category of things, right? It's a topic, it's a subject, it's a field. All of these things are essentially, they are applying to the same thing. Right now, let me actually make a distinction between that and something like, right, we had the question of if you have the same word that is a type in a property, right? There was a question there, should it be the same entity or should there be two separate entities, right? Should there be an entity for the type and a separate entity with the same name for the property? And in that case, I do think they're different things, right? Because I think that like the type and the relationship to something, those are two separate things, right? If you say, this is an author, I am an author person, or you say that's the author of this paper, in a sense, to me, like the relationship is different than the thing.
Right.
But in this case, they're different ways of categorizing, but they are the same thing, right? Quantitative finance is quantitative finance. I think, right? Whether it's a subject or a topic or it's quantitative. So in my mind, I think the important thing in this case is to only have one of these, ideally, right? Like anytime someone's talking about quantitative finance, the thing, the idea, it should be the same entity ID. And I think that it could have type topic if we want. For sure, it could be related to as a topic. So I think that the topics property, sometimes we try to be a little more specific about like what are the relation value types. Maybe something like topic should be much more general, where it's like you can be discussing anything as a topic, right? You could be discussing a person as a topic, and maybe you don't need to put type topic on a person. And so I think we should just be loose. I think topics is fine. And if you're referring to if it's an industry, that's fine. Whether or not it's its own space, I think that's fine. But we just want to make sure that I think in general we're using like that same entity ID whenever we're kind of talking about quantitative finance.
Okay, in this case, I created it as an academic field, but I'm still not so sure if it will be created like that in mainnet or not. Uh, or just, I don't know, maybe a topic type. So by the way, I have these like topics coming from I don't know if it's here, like the categories in Arxip. So I got it from there, but I guess we don't have to have it like one-to-one. But well, we can figure out this later. Another question I had here is about the URLs, because I have two URLs. I have this one, which is the PDF to download, and also the link that points to Arxip, to that specific paper in Arxip. So I use the PDF because I think it's the one that points that it's directly related to the paper. But well, we could use the other one, and I also thought about adding that one in the relationship. I didn't do that like this right now, but maybe it could be an option, because when you get the papers, this arXiv link is also the ID referencing it in the API. So I don't know, maybe I don't know if anyone else has like an ID in the relationship that points to that actual relationship, but something that we could do. And the other thing I could add here in the papers is the publish update, because we have the date where it was actually published, but Arxip also provides a date with an updated, which, well, in this case is the same, but we have some examples where it's not, like this one. So this is something that we could just omit, but also it would be good to have. I don't know. I guess that's all I have. So those are the main questions that I had with these types. We lost Shanir.
We still have Yaniv here, or I think he logged out. Okay, from the call. Okay. So on the quantitative finance, the question. So first of all, you're using the property topics. Is this the property that you yourself created, or did you link to an existing?
No, I use the existing one. This one.
Okay, topics. Let's take a look.
Well, this is mainnet and this is not, but
yeah, but yeah. So we might take a look at, if you click on the topics from the mainnet.
Right.
Let's see. Okay, so that was created for the education space. We do have, so, you know, sometimes this happens. There are multiple spaces and they create the same type or the same property, you know, without knowing that each other exist, and then we have to merge them. We have another property, related topics, which serves the same function. But you know, we do have a type topic. So you showed, can you show your original from which the article was taken? The original source.
You mean here?
Yes. And did you and you said you found the topics here?
Yes, I use the API, but I don't know if it does.
So
okay.
yeah. So how do we know that? Yeah, that those are the topics.
I mean, in this case, I have this. Well, I have this right here, but I think it's this one, optional consumption investment choices. Yes, it's this one. So those are the categories.
Okay, so oh yeah.
So we have this taxonomy. Where
okay, that's
here
great.
I was with quantitative finance and we have all this here.
Okay, so general thought on this, you know, let's say conceptual question: how is this different than, for example, anyone else using, you know, like some websites use tags, right, to organize the information, and especially we did see some people in the participants, there's, you know, scraping some data, and those websites have the tags property. And so then the question is, what would be the difference? Why would we sometimes use tags and sometimes use topics? So maybe for using tags, it's a much more lenient approach. We can sort of anything can get a type tag if you don't want to have it as like a, you know, a serious entity with the properties, you know, as like a properly defined semantically. A topic is something already it's an, you know, a bigger type of entity, a more significant one. A topic has its own properties, and a topic also allows for hierarchical organization, right? If we take a look at the topic as a type itself on Geo, the properties include subtopic and broader topic. So the topic as a type. So that would mean, you know, you could actually organize, you know, topics and subtopics. You can create a hierarchical structure. That, yeah, it's the second one on the bottom. Yeah, so like all related topics, right? And then you have
Right.
and then you have the broader topics and subtopics. So now you can sort of set up like the immediate you know, topics that are next to it. So for example, if you know, let's say if it's let's say it's mathematics, right? It could be like a topic until if we're thinking of it as a topic, then a subtopic could be, you know, algebra, for example, right?
Right.
So the topics, you know, and once we're thinking about those topics, a topic is by design a very, very broad type that anything can be a topic. And the reason to have it, like on a practical level, on a practical sense, is if you add, you know, if let's say you just gathered a bunch of interesting information, and this is going to be a recurring feature, you know, so you're scraping this or like, you know, pulling this, you know, complex, interesting data about, you know, scientific papers. So, and there's so many concepts, you know, like, so if you'll open up your example of your data, the ones that we had, or maybe like the one on Geo, the example that you showed, the one that you made. Yeah, so here, so, you know, let's say computer science, statistics, quantitative finance, you know, so, okay, now like you can start to, you know, get into this sort of questioning, hey, so is it a field? Is it, you know, like you start at your demo, you know, like Do I want to have this as a space? Maybe it's a field, but maybe we don't want everything to be a field. All of those are fair questions. But so it's good to position yourself from the ontological standpoint for a place where you would not have to make big commitments, ontologically speaking, until you get more and more data and you see certain more bridges that you need to cross, and sometimes you might have to rework. So, it is very simple. Like, yes, all of these three things that I'm looking at, computer science, statistics, and quantitative finance, all of them very easily can be a type topic, right? And you can already start organizing them, like maybe, we have related topics. So if, quantitative finance can be related to finance, if you'll find that in some other, statistics can be related, to maybe mathematics, computer science can be related to some other topics like, general science or, software. So now you can start grouping things of the same kind together. And then once you group them enough, you get all of the data, you can start making decisions, these topics are actually this type, and then you commit to a bulk list of entities.
So you mean I could have this like with the type topic?
Yeah, easily.
Associated, and then like this topic associated to maybe a finance academic field or something else.
Yeah. So essentially, that would be if you already know, if let's say you're gathering your data and you already very well understand your ontology, and if you feel confident, you can right away add, hey, I'm saying that these are academic fields, these are scientific fields, or you can set up your ontology. My argument is, you don't have to right away, right? You could very easily, start easy. Most ontologies can be built, with very little types. A person, an event, a claim, a topic, a project, and you can build up, a whole space just with that. And once you already create some structure, using the properties, you can start linking them together and you can say, oh, these are related to this, these are related to this. And once you start to seeing some of that structure, the structure starts to come to life, just as you're adding more and more data and using that initial very basic structure. And as it gets more and more complex, you can start seeing, oh, what kind of types actually are good to be added there.
Okay, that sounds okay, great.
Yeah, it's about scaling, start easy,
that's right.
and start simple.
Yeah, that's great. So the only question I think I have for this is how we are going to do that on mainnet, because if I remember correctly, we will have to be like editors in the, in this case, it might be the education space, or maybe the computer science space, which I think it's also an academic field.
Yes. So let's,
So in this case, is I point the topic to this academic field, which already exists, but also I could add the related space. Maybe in related space, I could just point to education, but in the topic, make the relationship here, but will I have to create like these new academic fields?
Yeah, so what we want to get at is that's going to be a bit of a technical challenge, but we will be working with the participants through the process. Some types and some entities already exist on Geo, and they already have the IDs. Those we want to reference, and we're just referencing the ID that's existing. Entities that you just have now in your list, but they don't yet exist in Geo. For those, we will want to generate new IDs as we're importing the data.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So this is looking super exciting. How did you choose this specific source?
Arxiv, I wanted to work with papers and search for a lot of different sources, and this one was the only one that had like a proper API. At least I could access for free.
Okay, yeah. I think this archive, so they specifically publish out of papers, I think, that are not fully peer reviewed. I think that's
right. that's why I did a lot of research trying to find a proper journal, but at the end I couldn't find any good API.
Oh yeah, but by the way, like I would say also it's a good approach that you're taking. We can always scale, like what kind of sources we're gonna be looking at, and how we're gonna organizing. It's the best thing to do is like look for easy wins and then build on top of them, right? So they have a good API. So yeah, like this already allows you to set up a structure, an ontology, like start filling that in. Once you nail the whole structure of the data, then we can start looking at some other data. There's but the structure is there. So even if we can find like some other sources, get some APIs and so on, like it will already go into the structure that you already built on this. So like I think it's just props for you, like finding a good, easy sort of source to tackle and taking on with success so far.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, do we have anyone else would like to do a demo?
I had a quick question.
Yep.
When we deploy a space, can we get so I know we get back the space ID, which is used to publish to that space, but can we get the like entity ID that goes with it as well? Programmatically?
So you do get the space ID.
Yeah, which is like I put in the space ID in order to publish to that space. However, if I like search that space ID, that's not actually the entity's ID.
Oh, okay. So if those are different, I think we should be able to do that. But let me take a note on that, and I'll get back to you on that. Okay.
Yeah. I was just wondering because there's some things that maybe you want to algorithmically create as spaces, and it's difficult if you have to like create it and then search for it.
Okay, noted. We'll take a look at that. Okay. Okay, so anyone else here who still didn't do the demo and would like to show what they have so far? It's really good, to do like some demos to get some initial feedback and for us to see where you are at. Okay, maybe we're everyone's already wanted to show. Okay, so we can conclude soon. I'd like to maybe a few questions I would like to maybe ask for the people that already showed. So for the legal space, the legal sort of content that you're building there, right?
Yep.
Yeah. What's your name again?
Preston.
Preston, hey. Okay, so you have like a one note about the sources. Can you share your example once more?
Yeah, so there's kind of two sides to it. So specifically, it's like the data set is pulled from a bunch of different places, and I have both information on like where it was pulled from, like a URL, and I have information on like IDs within that system. So if you look at there's like these IDs that are associated with these things from the original sources, and so those type of things I didn't know if were useful to include, but it seems like the general user wouldn't care. But as far as verifiability, it would be nice. So if it could be like wrapped into like a metadata type thing, or even another way we could do it is create an entity for that source. So say the source is like the federal judicial website. Then you can make an entity for that source, then make a relation from each entity to that source, and then within that relation, host these like IDs and things like that. So
yeah, so
like
okay, yeah, so that's like a very good, like I'd say, like question and like an interesting thinking on this. Okay, so maybe I can share my screen and just like give a quick show on some examples of how we're like approaching this so far. So first of all, like general conceptual sort of principle here. we do want to source everything, right? And a source, especially as we're talking about like this database, approach, a source is everything. Because if a person is browsing the data, especially when there's like data is going to be scaling and there's going to be so much more of it, at some point, I'm looking at something, I'm looking at the judge, I'm looking at some date when he was appointed, and I would think, was he really appointed at the date or not? How do I know? Like, how do I know that this was like an actual data submitted, and it's not just gibberish data submitted, for example, right? Or, how do I know that the source even, was selected wisely, and maybe it was like a gibberish source that someone took, right? So there are like few approaches that we were experimenting with, and we are also super open to see the participants experiment with this, and maybe there are different ways to approach this. So just to show you a few examples of what we're building with with some of the content. So for example, we have news, right? It's it's like a certain use case of Geo, as a platform. But in the news, like everything is a claim, so there are like certain articles. So these are the articles from which the claims have been taken from, so there's an article on the crypto.news, an article, on the, that's like the publisher, the blog, and so on. So now each of these, claims that we made in the news story, we can click on any of the claims. And then we would, so the claim says this person tenure marked by success, like overseeing merge, like here is like a claim. How do you know that this claim is accurate, right? Like, it's just a statement, in the database. So now we have the quotes that support the claim. And so those are verbatim text taken from those 3 articles, and then you can click on the quote, that's the quote from the text. And, it has the source. We can check the source. The source has the URL. We can also scale this with scripts. For example, every once in a while, we're going to do like a quick checkup, to see if, just a script like Control-T, Control-V, like, do we have that quote really in the source? Just like you can like mass check the data like this. So this is like a next level of citation. This is like true Web3 level of citation, where we are, not just like referencing the source where it come from, and then like just linking you, a 3 pages document, to swift through and find. We can actually link to a specific statement. So that's one way. And something that you might find maybe specifically interesting, we have some examples with legal approaches. So we were building, experimenting on some politics and some other spaces a while back. And so, for example, major litigation of a politician. So if we click here, we can see like what was the approach with this. So let's say there was a Supreme Court case. We can click on the Supreme Court case. And so here it's, that's the case. So now we have like the background, the proceedings, the outcomes, the causes of court case, and so on and so on. So let's check out the outcomes, for example, of the Supreme Court case. So now the outcomes are listed as type claim. And, so let's say Court Anderson reversed Colorado Supreme Court decision in this and this, to disqualify Trump from president ballot. Okay, cool. So that's a claim of what happened in this court, right? That was a decision. How do we know that this claim, is accurate? How do we know that this actually happened? Someone just didn't write that. We have the quotes. So these are the 2 quotes, the judgment of Colorado Supreme Court is reversed, like that's the quote. Where did the quote come from? The quote come from the author of Supreme Court. And here's a link to the ruling, right? So also, once you're gonna, right now we're focusing on ontology so far, but for the, once we get a bit more advanced into this, we can also discuss a bit more about leveraging AI, which like really can help to connect these connections, with at scale a bit better. But so that is like some of the approaches that we're taking, right? So we do have the main properties to think about is the sources and the source URL. And I would say, you mentioned that, maybe it could be like in the metadata, right? Like the source. So one note about that. So the definition of the metadata, right? It is structured information about the entity, right? So so in that thinking, the method. So if you open up any entity, if it's either it's a person or a project, or anything else, the content area, it's here, these tables that we can, you can add any tables in the content area. And if you scroll down, like this is the metadata. It's a structured information about the entity. So, it just so happens that, the structured information, the metadata is relational usually and so on, but it is the metadata. So there is no other place where the information could go aside to either as a value of the property or in a relation, as a like extra, but also would be value of the property within the relation, right? So the question, so we will not be able to sort of run away from the, the fact that, all we have in a relational database and in a knowledge graph is just the nodes. We have the types and properties, and we connect the data in that way. And so that's what we have. And then the question is, where, like, how much exact you can add a link, to a specific source that would prove that that's the case. If I'm looking at, this is a person, that's this role, and that's the role. How do you know that that is exactly his role? Like, how do I check? Where is the link for me to check if that's the case? Like ideally, that's at least like a goal that we should have, like as a general idea, is that we would want, as much as information that is like, if a statement is being made, either it's a claim or it's a, it's a value of a property. If I'm saying, this person is a, politician, that's a statement. It's actually a data, data point, but it's a statement. You can infer a statement. So if I am making a conclusion, I should be able to check the sources, and the sources themselves we should also organize, right? So in the same way that you have a list of entities, like for example, you have a list of judges, you have a list of court cases or rulings, and all of these different things. In the same matter, you should have in the same list that you take with the same level of responsibility, which is your sources. They should also, you can also leverage the the semantic nature of the interconnected database to make sure that your sources are organized. You can organize your sources. These are the sources that are from institutions. These are from articles. These are from reputable news sources. From research papers or whatever. You can organize by that. You can you can add some more semantic information, like certain tags on them. Like these are the sources that are highly trusted. These are sources that are medium trusted, and so on and so on.
So what do you think about the use? So I see how you're like looking at this. What do you think about having like a general entity for the source, right? Say it's like there's a website like called fjc.com or .gov, which is like the federal judicial courts website where they have a lot of information, right? So you could make an entity just for that thing, and then from every data point, creating a relation as a source, or creating a source property and creating a relation from that entity back to that source entity. And then inside of that relation, having properties like database identifier, unique URL, things like that.
Yeah,
is that okay with you or not?
So maybe, that would be a list of, so you're taking a list of sources, right? That's the first step. And now you need to assign them a type. What's the type?
I mean, like it could, it doesn't really, the type could just be like company.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, yeah, that works. Okay, so now we have, let's say you have an article or a claim or whatever, right? So it links to the, it has the property source, links to the source, and in a relation entity itself, you want to add like links to the the actual source thing.
Yeah. In the relation entity, I want the exact URL. And then I can put things like database identifier, and like I could have more information. I could have like list as much information on that source as possible, while making the clean relationship from that entity to its source.
Yeah, like sure, like as long as like I would say this, as long as I'm seeing something that has meaning, right? Like it says something to me on a database. And if I am a click away or 2 clicks away from, seeing where it come from, like a source URL, a source itself, and so on, I'm good. And like another thing just to note, the link, like the web source URL or like web URL property, that's a good property to use, sure. Something to consider, it's also, for example, like in some of these examples that I'm showing, we are linking not just to the source URL. In this case, we're the quote itself, it links not just to like a link, but it links to we actually have an entity, like a source is, like in this case, a source is the article, right? So the articles itself is now an entity. So, and like a general thinking is like the more types of entities you have, the better, if you're able to scale it, of course, like, if you can make it work with, like, as you're like collecting large, sets of data and making it entities and connecting them. But creating like a specific entity for, like, it may be like a source according to you, it's like it's a company, but what's, did they publish a press release? Did they, put it on their blog post? So if you would add that as well, now you can organize those types of sources like even better. You can like set up those lists. But the general thinking is, yes, like using relation and adding the content, like the linking and all of these things in there, like it can work. And you can experiment on that and show us how does that look on the next demo.
Okay, cool. The real reason that I want to do that, it also allows for like a robust way to show different types of sources without having to have a ton of different properties on your original entity. You can just have a source property on original entity, and then maybe one type of source is a database identifier, one type of source is a URL, right? Things like that. That maybe the same data point can be seen in 4 different databases, but I don't want to have database identifier for X, database identifier for YZ as properties. I can just make relations to those sources, and then inside of each relationship create a database identifier that
so that sounds definitely like an interesting approach. So like I would love to see that, like you can like set it up, maybe you can, like you can set up some examples there. Maybe you can send me an email with when you have that. I can take a look right away and give some feedback right away. Like, like the challenge, like, like the general thing, like thinking that you can have, like, once I will be checking, the content that you made, right? I will, like, the general questions I will have like these, am I seeing something in your data? Like I'm like something is being said or something is being implied by what I see. And, so where do I click to check that, that in case is true, and, so they're like, where do I click? What do I find? Like, and can I find the list somewhere else, somewhere in other corner of your database of that, like, list of sources? So maybe I would review the sources themselves to see, like, are you using, like, like, what's your approach with sources? Like, are we trusting them all in the same level? Like, those are like 2 questions that I would have, and then, like, it's up to creativity, for you to like think of, like, how exactly, like, where do I click exactly? You can show me, I'll just have the question like, can I, so. Okay, so thank you everyone. Great demos today. Like really exciting to see what people are doing with the, with the data and with structuring here. Like the progress is really exciting here. Are there any like final notes or questions as we close up the office hours? Okay, thank you everyone. Great job, and see you around. Keep in touch in the Discord channel. We'll be sending you some more emails, and I'll be sending out some calendar link. You can, book a call, just for a quick review, and like a quick progress update. And like the more updates, the better. If we can give you feedback the quicker and make some adjustments or some, in sort of suggestions and advices to progress quicker, we're happy to do that. So, as much as you are proactive into reaching out to us, we are proactive, and happy to investigate. Okay, so stay around. Bye.